We have some breaking news. A new Bloomberg reporting just confirmed Jeffrey Epstein told Ghislaine Maxwell to remove Trump from a mysterious list back in 2006. And before we dive in, since you guys trust me for your news, the best way to support this work is to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on notifications. Please like and leave a comment on videos you watch. This will help me tremendously continue to give you fact-checked, independent reporting that we need here in America. Here's what we know. Bloomberg obtained more than 18,000 emails from Epstein's Yahoo account. And on September 14, 2006, Ghislaine Maxwell sent Epstein a list of 51 powerful people saying, please review list and add or remove peeps. Epstein's response was short: remove Trump. The purpose of this list is unknown. Bloomberg says there was no subject line or context, and it could have been anything from a contact list or a private invite roster. But what's clear is that Epstein wanted Trump off it. The emails have been vetted for authenticity, and there's no sign of forgery. This doesn't really prove any criminal activity, but it does add a new layer of the documented connection between Trump and Epstein and Maxwell. My name is Jared Zisser. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Substack, and YouTube for breaking news, updates, and the full story. You guys are awesome. See you in the next video.
I'm not implying anything, but how odd is it that just hours after we have clear, direct confirmation of Donald Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, one of Trump's biggest supporters, Charlie Kirk, dies. And interestingly, do you know who the first person to break that news was? It was Trump. It was Trump. So again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. And there are so many events that have happened during this administration and prior that just give so many red flags that they are hard to ignore. The timing is so interesting, don't you think?
We got some breaking news in the Epstein-Donald Trump scandal. Bloomberg has gotten its hands on tens of thousands of emails belonging to Jeffrey Epstein, effectively his inbox. And it once and for all demonstrates that Ghislaine Maxwell lied under oath when she was giving what Donald Trump hoped would be helpful information, credible information to his lackey, Todd Blanche of the Department of Justice. It was all a lie. The only thing I think she said that was true was her name, because inside that treasure trove of emails that Bloomberg and now we have been able to access were the gift list of $1.8 million worth of gifts, mostly through her, that Jeffrey Epstein gave not only wealthy people, including Bill Clinton being listed, Alan Dershowitz being listed as getting extravagant gifts, but an entire section for gifts given to his victims, because we now know the names of his victims and what he bought them and when he bought them and how he bought them through Ghislaine Maxwell, who denied, of course, in her 300-page transcript to the government to try to get out of jail, denied any involvement. Well, the emails tell a completely different story. Not only do you have the spreadsheet prepared by her accountant, forget the client list, we got the spreadsheet of the gifts that Epstein had Maxwell procure and give to victims and powerful men alike. We also show the emails also show the closeness of the relationship, which was denied by Maxwell and Epstein. How close they were. They were even in the process of fertility treatment, I guess, for Maxwell to have Epstein's baby. You also saw the perverse exchanges where people were coming to Epstein and offering women, girls, including fathers of some of the victims who were paid, according to a spreadsheet, $10,000, I guess, to have his prostitute out his daughter, his young daughter. And there's even a message referencing Donald Trump, and it bolsters our analysis that the reason that Donald Trump got rid of his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein had nothing to do with the fact that he knew or should have known that Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile. But it was over a financial transaction, over a $41 million piece of property. How do I know that? Because there's an email in which Ghislaine Maxwell lists all the participants effectively in the transaction and comments about, well, the paper's probably talking to these people about that piece of property. Right, because that's the reason. It was a fight over a $41 million piece of property that led Donald Trump to get rid of Jeffrey Epstein, not because he thought he was a creep or he thought he was or Donald Trump was a FBI informant.
President Trump has just suffered a stroke, and I don't even think he knows it yet. He went out for a 9/11 remembrance today with his wife Melania. This was just moments ago. I was just watching it live. And what I'm seeing is one of the major stroke symptoms, facial drooping. Look at this video. This is from Washington Post, and you can go on YouTube and watch this live video. You can see that the right side of Trump's face is drooping down. This is one of the clear signs of a stroke. B FAST is the acronym that we use to look for signs, and F is the facial drooping.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
And there's more, because yesterday, Trump posted a video about Charlie Kirk. People were saying this video is AI edited, and it did not look like him at all.
Devoted his life to the cause of open debate.
Was his stroke yesterday? Did somebody in the White House notice this?
24 hours after Charlie Kirk's assassination, this was Trump at the 9/11 memorial. I wish that we could all be relaxed like him. Let me tell you who's not relaxed. I just spoke with a Michigan House rep, and she and other Democratic colleagues of hers are getting death threats, a lot of them. She even had to cancel a public event she was holding in the next couple of weeks. And Michigan's House majority is Republican. Matt Hall is the Michigan Speaker of the House. And one of the first things he did on day one, this past January, after he was sworn in, was he had every single metal detector removed from the Capitol building where they hold their House meetings and where their government offices are. He said that everybody has a God-given right to carry, open carry, right into the Capitol building. So you can imagine how scared Democrats are right now, since you've got people like Fox News' Jesse Waters calling for retaliation, since you've got MAGA Republicans ignoring that 95% of political crimes, mass pew-pews, are from those consuming right-wing content. They're being told that we're the ones, the dangerous ones. I wish that we could relax like this. I wish my Democratic leaders that represent me in Michigan could relax like this today.
I told you. I told you they're going to go to civil war. They are on the brink at the moment. Today I'm going to give you some history lessons. I'm going to talk about the Knights Templar. I'm going to talk about World War I. And yeah, I'm going to talk about yesterday. I am not giving you my opinion of what happened yesterday. I'm just going to talk about the fallout. And you're going to want to wait till the end of the video, because that wasn't Trump who addressed the nation. And I can prove it. First up, the Knights Templar. Stick around. It'll make sense in a moment. The Knights Templar were created by the Pope and the Vatican to go fight a war in the Holy Land. In doing so, the Knights Templar became really rich. And they turned to banking. Yeah, some of the first banks. The King of France owed the Knights Templar a lot of money. He couldn't pay them back. So the King of France had a conversation with the Pope. They disbanded the Knights Templar. And then the King of France rounded up all the Knights Templar in France, and debt was forgiven. The point being, when there's an enormous amount of debt out there and an inability to pay it, things happen. The United States has an enormous amount of debt. They don't know how they're going to pay it back. Things are going to happen. All right, history lesson number 2, World War I. That's Archduke Franz Ferdinand when he was, that kicked off World War I. What's important is how it happened. A 19-year-old young man in Sarajevo did the deed. It wasn't a government-on-government thing. That didn't stop anybody from making it a government-on-government thing. Yeah, ultimatums were given back and forth, conditions that could never be met, etc., etc., etc. The whole thing devolved into a world war. The point being, there doesn't need to be a strong justification to go to war. Just something. And yesterday was quite something. Again, not giving you my opinion on the actual events, all right? But you need to know this, and I've said this in the past, this is part of the identity of some of these people. When I say identity, I mean it's personal, right? So what happened yesterday wasn't just a terrible event. It was a personal attack. Immediately following the events, the political right blamed the political left. You see where this is going? They do not have a suspect. But I'll tell you something. Right now, it is more beneficial to the political right to not have a suspect. Once they get a suspect, that person will be the culprit. Without a suspect in custody, the entire political left is a potential assassin. Politically speaking, it is more valuable to not have a suspect than to have a suspect. And lastly, there's this that puts a whole bunch of questions in my head. News organizations everywhere are sharing this video. It's from Donald Trump's Truth Social. You can see it on the BBC, you can see it on CNN, you can see it everywhere. Only thing, that's not Donald Trump. Watch.
And left him are united in shock and horror. Charlie was a patriot.
That was AI. That was an AI glitch. All day long, that's an AI glitch. That's not a camera glitch. That's not his hands just twitching. Watch it. Watch it again. Watch it over and over. That's an AI glitch. Now the question is, why did they have an AI Trump make this address to the nation? But I don't want it to be real either. I was like, no, it can't be. And I watched it again and again and again, and I'm like, son of a bitch, it is. Now I'm going to stop short of saying this is a grand conspiracy. But are they seizing the moment? Oh, yeah. Are they going to try and make this turn into an all-out civil war? Oh, yeah. Well, they're going to try and impose their will, and they're hoping there isn't much resistance. But given that this country is filled with firearms, I'm thinking there's going to be resistance. De-dollarization is happening. The world is already trying to circumvent the United States in terms of trade. This isn't going to help. It's probably going to help us. They'll be so occupied amongst themselves that they won't pay any attention to Canada. Get your popcorn ready, because it's kicking off.
Good morning, everybody. It's about 10:35 West Coast time on Thursday, September 11th. I did a long video last night about the impact of Donald Trump hiring or appointing people in his cabinet into various positions based on loyalty as opposed to based on their competence to fulfill those positions. And I talked about Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at the FBI, and that they are both incompetent to be in the positions that they are in right now. And that is true of so many people throughout the Trump administration. And this is related to the assassination of Charlie Kirk yesterday. Folks at the New York Times are doing live updates of information as it comes in. And I've seen a lot of reports this morning, a lot of articles saying that ammunition was found at the scene of the shooting that was engraved with messages expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. And here's one of the live updates that Glenn Thrush and Devin Barrett put up on the New York Times earlier this morning. I'm just going to read these two paragraphs. According to preliminary internal reports circulated inside the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, federal and local officials recovered ammunition with the shooter's rifle that appeared to be engraved with statements, quote, expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology, close quote. Next sentence. But a senior law enforcement official with direct knowledge of the investigation cautioned that report had not been verified by ATF analysts. That report does not match other summaries of the evidence and might turn out to have been misread or misinterpreted. In fast-moving investigations, such status reports are not made public because they often contain a mixture of accurate and inaccurate information. One of the last questions that Charlie Kirk was asked before he was shot was about transgender mass shooters. I've seen a dozen articles this morning stating as fact that federal and local officials recovered ammunition with the shooter's rifle that appeared to be engraved with statements expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. I have not seen many of those articles contain the next sentence. But a senior law enforcement official with direct knowledge of the investigation cautioned that that report had not been verified by ATF analysts. It did not match other summaries of the evidence collected and might turn out to have been misread or misinterpreted. And this is what happens when you put incredibly incompetent people in charge of these kinds of investigations. We are in a position where we can't trust the information that comes from Donald Trump's FBI, ATF, DOJ, or the White House, because they care deeply about making sure that the person who did this is someone who fits their particular political narrative right now when it comes to mass shootings and when it comes to this particular shooting. How can we trust a single word that comes from this administration on this investigation? Meanwhile, so many people on the right have taken that quote, which hasn't been confirmed, might not be accurate, could have been misread, and doesn't match other summaries of evidence collected at the scene, and they're blaming a trans shooter that doesn't exist, further demonizing that marginalized community and that population within the United States. Navigating this with this administration in charge is going to be a fucking train wreck. It's going to be a fucking train wreck. And my fear is that you're going to see innocent people get caught up in this, and their lives are going to be changed forever. In a bad way.
Other news, there is actually other news today. It's a horrible day, but there is other news. Inflation ticked up in August. This is NBC News. Amid a weakening job market, inflation continues to tick up with companies like Hasbro, Walmart saying, Amazon saying they're going to be raising prices even more because of the validity of its tariffs. Let me just read you a little bit of the reporting. Consumer price growth in August. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported on Thursday. Consumer price growth rose, in August. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported on Thursday. It's the latest indication that the U.S. economy continues to contend with inflation even as the job market cools. The broadest measure of price growth increased 0.4% last month after rising 0.2% in July ahead of estimates of 0.3%. Doesn't sound like it's a big deal, right? I mean, just not even a percentage point, but it's double. It's double what it was the month before. And we know there's more price increases coming, but let me read a little more to you. On a 12-month basis, the index climbed 2.9% compared with 2.7% in July. It's the highest reading since January. The tariff inflationary situation is starting to kick in, and it's only going to get worse. Companies cannot, even large companies, Small companies are on the verge. Many of them are of going out of business. A lot of farms, we've seen this all over TikTok. A lot of farmers are complaining. They're on the verge of going out of business because of the tariff war. Now, large companies are starting to feel the heat. They cannot eat the tariffs anymore. They cannot pay the tax on U.S. consumers. Excluding food and energy prices, which tend to be more volatile, price growth hit 3.1% on a 12-month basis, the highest figure since February, and the third straight month this rate has picked up. So, that's the actual inflation rate, right? Growth hit, prices increased by 3.1% over a 12-month period. Some of the biggest price increases seen between July and August were prices for used cars and trucks and transportation services, which includes airfare, both up by 1%. While inflation is going up, according to NBC News, wage growth is also slowing down. From July to August, earnings fell by 0.1% after inflation, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said, suggesting prices are rising faster than earnings are going up. Buckle up. The economy is going to be something in the months to come.
Okay, with the Jeffrey Epstein scandal and the potential for identities of these perpetrators to actually come to light after decades of the Department of Justice failing Jeffrey Epstein's victims. Again, the only person sitting in prison for victimizing at least 1,000 women and girls, right? The Department of Justice admitted in court filings there were at least 1,000 victims. The only person sitting in prison for that is Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman. Representative Melanie Stansbury and others are seeming like they're very much committed to exposing this scandal, shining light on everything that happened and getting justice. That is a huge lift. And I know people in Rep. Stansbury's comments are like, dear Lord, protect her at all costs. Because there's an awful lot of powerful people who've been very invested in keeping all of this quiet and denying Epstein's victims justice for years and years and years. And they do not want any of this to come out. And I said something about this earlier today on Blue Sky, and I want to talk about it for a second. A thread about the Epstein victims, and in particular about the entries in Jeffrey Epstein's birthday book. This person, I don't know who they are, but I saw their comment and I was like, yeah, I agree. People are so much worse than we can imagine. I like to think the best of people. I am perpetually optimistic and idealistic. I tend to be relatively naive about how profoundly cruel and evil people can be. I am aware that I'm naive about it. I struggle to be more cynical and more skeptical when I should be. No, I don't want to be cynical, but I should be more skeptical. I should be less trusting. Anyway, my response to this comment of people are so much worse than we can imagine, because folks were horrified at the entries in this birthday book. My response was, the more light shines on the Epstein case, the more people are going to have this terrible but necessary epiphany. Billionaires and your favorite celebrities and politicians are so much worse than you thought. The evil the super rich are capable of shouldn't surprise us, but it often does. Over the last couple of weeks, I have seen too many people on social media, centrists, liberals, folks on the left even, who they really still think that there are good billionaires. They really think that there are still good guys who are worth billions and billions of dollars, and that those folks actually have the best interest of the working class at heart, that they really want to build a better America for the working class. No, y'all, no. There's no such thing as an ethical billionaire. The reason they've been able to become billionaires in the first place is because they have no qualms about exploiting working class people and exploiting the environment. No qualms about it. They have no problem hoarding vast quantities of wealth, while 47 million Americans struggle with food insecurity. They have no problem hoarding vast quantities of wealth, while hundreds of thousands of people are starving to death after Elon Musk took away USAID. They have no problem giving themselves big, fat bonus packages, making sure that their shareholders get big, fat dividends, while their workers are barely scraping by. We have an oligarchy in the United States. So we have a two-tiered society. There's all of us in the working class, and then there's the super rich at the top, right? Like, look at Jeff Bezos's recent wedding where he rented out Venice or something. And we saw Leonardo DiCaprio, who thinks he's a big environmentalist. He wants you to believe he's a big environmentalist. He went to Jeff Bezos's wedding. Oprah Winfrey. In the middle of America going through a fascist takeover, in the middle of people losing their health care and their jobs, in the middle of immigrants being rounded up, we saw the super rich celebrities going to Jeff Bezos's wedding, flaunting their obscene wealth in our faces and acting like we should be gobbling up those gossip rags and oohing and awing over them, living a life we could never conceive of. We should not be surprised that those kind of people will assault little girls and think that they're entitled to it and see no problem with it. Make birthday books about it where they list their real names. They think they are entitled to an entirely different life from you and I. They think we should be funding their wealth and comfort. We exist to fund their luxurious lifestyles. We exist to provide pleasure, entertainment with our blood, sweat, tears, life hours, our psyches, our bodies, our very lives. We should not be surprised by this. The super rich don't see us as fully human. We are just a means to an end for them, right? The same kind of people who can exploit their workers, who can pollute the environment, rob future generations, those kind of people are going to be able to victimize girls. When this list comes out, and if there is a day when we get justice for the victims, none of us should be surprised if there are celebrities and politicians, public figures on that list that we thought we liked, that we thought were one of the good ones. Just like an awful lot of people on this app right now seem to think that they're good billionaires, I think there's an awful lot of people who think that they're like good benevolent celebrities, that these people, they're just lovely and wonderful because we have parasocial relationships with them, right? Because we want to believe the best in them. And I think people are going to be hurt when they see names on that list. They feel like, oh no, not you. I will not be surprised. Any rich person, I feel like there's a potential for any of them to be on that list. They want to play by a different set of rules. They have been able in this country to play by a different set of rules for decades. They have gotten away with victimizing 1,000 women and girls, trafficking and victimizing them for years and years and years. And we don't know who these people are. There is no justice so far. The same way the oligarchy continues to fuck all of the working class, exploit and harm all of us, inflict suffering on all of us, and they don't face accountability. The super rich in this country have increased their wealth dramatically since Donald Trump got elected. I did a video about this, I think it was back in April, and it's way worse now. It's way worse. They are absolutely grifting. The whole Trump regime is a grift, right? How can they take more and more of our taxpayer dollars, our hard-earned money, right? Not just exploiting us when it comes to low wages and high prices, et cetera, but also now the grift is very much, how can we get those sweet government contracts? How can we get giant tax breaks for billionaires? And then the working class folks take their tax dollars and put them into my corporation, right? That's the reason that they're having these private businesses do AI screening for your Medicare claims, and then they'll get a kickback, a bonus of our tax dollars, right, if they deny claims for Medicare and cut costs. Private corporations, private businesses, all of these would-be billionaires and current billionaires are grifting. Even the ones you think are good and have charitable foundations, right? Bill Gates Foundation. Breaking news this past week that a company named Signature that Bill Gates owns, guess what? They are helping with they're making money doing these deportation flights of immigrants. There's no such thing as ethical billionaires. There's no such thing as a good rich person. I'm sorry, y'all. You want to believe that if you were a billionaire, you would do better? No, you and I, average Americans, we don't have whatever it takes, and I don't mean that in a good way, to become a billionaire. Whatever is shriveled and twisted inside of them is not for the rest of us. Because I choose to believe that your average working class person, if they suddenly had $1 billion, first of all, they would never do the things that it would take to amass that much wealth. But if they suddenly had that much wealth, I think most working class people would help other folks with it. Most working class people would try to fix significant problems with that wealth. I know I would, right? Like the joy is in the giving. The joy is in seeing how people use your money. You can't take it with you. It's more wealth than you could spend in many, many lifetimes. Why would you deny yourself the joy and the pleasure of helping other people and making their lives demonstrably better? But the super rich, they don't think like that. They think they're entitled to all that wealth. They think that there's no amount of luxury that should be denied them. They think that everything should be accessible to them, including the bodies of little girls. So none of us should be surprised when there are going to be billionaires you thought were the good ones because they support democratic causes on that list. Nobody should be surprised when there are prominent Democratic politicians on that list. Nobody should be surprised when their favorite celebrity is on that list. This is who these people are. what happened to Jeffrey Epstein's victims, the way they've been denied justice for so long, the way there's been this massive cover-up, all of that is emblematic of who the super rich are and how they treat working class people, how they dehumanize working class people, how they feel free to exploit and harm working class people, and how they trust that they will be able to get away with it, that they can do whatever they want, and they'll never face justice. Y'all, there's hundreds of millions more of us than there are of them. Now's a good time. It's a good time in history to show them that justice will not escape them, to remind them that the power of the people is greater than the people in power, and we must get justice.
What just happened with Charlie Kirk was an entirely predictable scenario. And it is a sign that things are going to get worse for our country, for our democracy, for our security. They're going to get much worse before they even begin to come anywhere close to getting better. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris Goldsmith, former Army Sergeant, and founder of Task Force Butler Institute and Veterans Fighting Fascism. My organizations train veterans in open source intelligence research. We infiltrate and expose extremist organizations. I have personally been studying disinformation, misinformation, foreign troll farms, and I've been studying figures like Charlie Kirk and his Turning Point USA and the effect that he has had on our country over the last 10 years. I am not excusing or condoning what happened to Charlie Kirk on that stage. I'm certainly not celebrating it. But as someone who has studied him and extremist movements for years, I am saying that he made the bed that he's now laying in. This is not about the Second Amendment or his views on whether or not people should be able to own any certain types of weapon. And I'm not blaming the victim here, to be clear. But what I am saying is that Charlie Kirk was a big enough influence in our country to change the heart of our politics by demonizing, by targeting vulnerable communities, by turning political opponents into enemies, and by helping foster a culture where young, angry white men lash out and are expected to lash out. Charlie Kirk played a large role in making political violence in our country more acceptable, more common, more of the norm. And we will all have to deal with that long after he's gone. Now, my objective here is not to make you feel hopeless. In fact, it's the opposite. I want you to understand that there is going to be some political retribution. Donald Trump and his MAGA sycophants are going to lash out. They are going to use the virtually unchecked powers of the executive branch in the United States to lash out against their political enemies. And this is not something that's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month. This is the new norm. Charlie Kirk will be remembered as a martyr for MAGA. And what happened to him on that stage will be used to justify political violence. It will be used to justify state violence against American citizens. All of this is bad. But again, my objective here is not to make you feel hopeless. It is to let you know that you can either sit back and let things happen or be an active force for good. If you have the same privileges that I have, I'm a white, bald guy with a beard and tattoos. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and I am someone who exercises my Second Amendment. I am someone who can interact with law enforcement safely because of the way that I look and because of the sound of my voice or accent. If you have these privileges, you have a responsibility. That is why I created Veterans Fighting Fascism. Communities all across this nation are vulnerable right now. There are lots of folks who are afraid. Being afraid doesn't make you a coward. It makes you recognize that there is risk. And even those with privilege will always face some risk. But I want to encourage you to get organized at the local level, because protecting your community and more vulnerable communities in your neighborhood, especially those who don't necessarily feel safe around people who wear uniforms for good reason, that is something that you can do through online and real-world activism. We have seen, for example, the city of Chicago, the people of Chicago, the local government of Chicago and Illinois saying no to fascism. They do not want troops from other states coming into their city, to their state. And because the reaction has been so strong, Trump's administration looks like they're going to back down. At least that's what it looks like right now. That came from people hanging signs in their windows. They didn't even have to leave their house. That came from people who did leave the house marching peacefully through the street. It came from journalists covering the impact that ICE is having on their local neighborhoods and communities. And it came from local politicians knowing that they have the backing of their citizens when they say, no, the objective of the authoritarian is to make you feel powerless. And if you know anything about history, you know that authoritarians use political violence to escalate further political violence. You know that fascist movements use martyrs as inspiration to recruit, radicalize, and victimize. There has never been a more critical time for you to get activated into anti-fascist activism. If you want to learn more about what you can do and about the history of fascism and how to fight against authoritarians, I want to encourage you to start your own anti-fascist book club. If you go to veteransfightingfascism.org, there is an instruction manual on how you can gather your local community and you can start engaging in building a real close-knit, tight community who can respond when the inevitable retaliation and escalation comes. Authoritarians try to rewrite history because history can teach us how to fight them. At veteransfightingfascism.org, we have a list of books that will help you learn about this history, this fight. And our guide teaches you how to facilitate meetings of the Anti-Fascist Book Club. And whether you're doing it online or in person, and I want to encourage the in-person version, you can play a role in protecting your community from what is going to come. It's okay to feel despair. It's okay to feel afraid. That just shows that you have a heart, that you're smart. I want to encourage you to take those emotions, take those feelings, and channel them into something good, something positive to build your community and protect your community. To learn how, go to veteransfightingfascism.org and download our free guide for creating an anti-fascist book club.